Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Game of Thrones, No One. So, overall I enjoyed this episode a lot because it was setting up everything for kind of the season finale and where we're going to kind of find everyone because the next episode, Battle of the Bastards, looks to be like Blackwater and take pretty much all precedence into the Battle of Winterfell. So, we wouldn't be getting really any other kind of closure or scene where people are going to be placed in that episode. So I like how they set everything up and having all the arcs move in a better pace, I believe, than we've had in seasons past because you've had the books to go on and you kind of had to keep that same tone going and how everything had to kind of go, even though you could have to change things to fit the format. But in this one, since they've been kind of freed, they were able to condense things and do things in a different manner. So this episode started out with the fallout of the Waif trying to kill Arya. She's stabbed and everything, and it sets up at the play that's going on about all the stuff that's going on in Westeros. And Lady Crane finds her, takes her back to her house, and kind of sews her up and everything, and kind of takes care of her. But you can see that Arya is kind of worried, thinking that this could be the Waif trying to kill her, but she's still kind of trusting of Lady Crane to kind of get through what she's going through. So we then go to the Brotherhood Without Banners, or ones calling themselves Brotherhood Without Banners, and the Hound just completely rips this group apart. There's a lot of kind of funny stuff that was going on with the group. They're like, oh, jovial, and then out comes the Hound, slicing and dicing with his axe and just doing what he does best. He is a good fighter. And granted, he's a very complex character in that he doesn't think that he's good, but yet he does good. And it kind of is that kind of clash of ideas that he's done things that bad people wanted him to do, but yet he does those bad things now to kind of make up for what happened to the good people that he was trying to be with. And he just went to town on these guys, ripping them apart. It was really good to see his action and prowess and thinking whoever fights him is going to have a tough time. Now, him versus Brienne was a very good drag-out, knockdown fight. And it's going to be hard to kind of bring that up, but to like bring that a next level fight above that. But if they ever put Clegane against the Mountain, which I think they will at some point, even though in this episode we kind of got some stuff that's going to be bashing that a little bit. We'll see how it kind of goes from there. So then we get to Tyrion and Varys, and the red priests and priestesses are spreading the message that Dany's the one that's helped them. So everything's kind of calm and marine at the moment. And Tyrion's like, look what we did. And Varys is like, you made a deal with fanatics. We'll see how that works. And Varys is then off to his own secret mission to kind of get more supporters in Westeros, try and get ships. Where I think that this is going to lead to him running into probably Theon and Yara and bringing them back at some point to use their ships. And then we get to flashing over to Cersei and Qyburn, and that the Faith Militant has been sent to collect Cersei because the High Sparrow has, well, not really requested, demanded that she come to the Sept of Baelor. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And Lancel's like, no, this isn't a request. We're going to take you if this resorts to violence. And then that's when the Mountain steps in, and she's like, okay, well, I choose violence. So then they promptly try to attack the Mountain, and one dude, I don't know what kind of thing it is. It's like an axe, but it's kind of two-pronged and everything. Gets buried in his chest. Doesn't do a damn thing to him. And then he rips a dude's head off. I mean, almost similar to Predator style, but he like grabs it and just, he is doing head ripping shit this season, and it's amazing because it's like, he is just under some direct orders, but he is an efficient killer now. Whereas when he was whole and human, he would kind of have fun with certain things. Now it's like a methodical killing machine with the power to do this. And that's kind of scary, but also kind of awesome. And we could see that this was going to lead to ramifications later on that I don't think Cersei quite understands. She's gotten into a point of acting instead of thinking about what her actions are going to do. And that has led to the current predicament that's been happening in King's Landing. So then we get to see Brienne and Pod getting up to the Siege of River Run, and it's pretty cool to see more character interactions like this, because they get in there, Pod's standing outside, Bronn comes up and he's like, hey, and they get their nice kind of character moments, kind of catching up with each other since they've left Tyrion's service, and he's like, well, Brienne's been teaching me how to fight, and he's like, well, how is that good if an old fucker like me can sneak up behind you? He's like, well, that's a different kind of fighting. And I'm glad that he said that's a different kind of fighting, because that shows that Podrick understands that, yes, there's like honorable fighting, but then there's the real fighting that happens, where people aren't going to be nice and go, huzzah, and salute you and all that crap. They're going to come up behind you, they're going to stab you in the back, they're going to do whichever way they can. And it's good to see Podrick learning that, and I think that'll effectively build him to be a great knight later on if he survives, because that's the point. We don't know who's going to survive or who's going to learn their lessons in order to survive. And it was pretty cool to see that he's learning that from Bronn, because you got to hand it to Bronn. He's a survivor. He does things that he needs to survive. I mean, he might get poisoned or whatnot, but he's going to be wary about that stuff later on. So then we get to see Jaime and Brienne kind of interacting, and you can see the good that Brienne brings out in Jaime. She does something to him that Cersei has the opposite reaction of making him worse and only selfish and thinking about what they have to do to stay together. And she's like, well, I've done my part, I found Sansa, and he's like, I honestly thought she'd be dead. And he's kind of proud of her for fulfilling her oath and everything, and she's been keeping up her end of the bargain with, like, Oathkeeper. And she's, if you notice, she's one of the only ones, at least at the moment that we know of, that really keeps her oaths. She went to find Sansa, went to find Arya, doing all these things that she's been tasked to do. She's killed Stannis for what he did to Renly. It's kind of interesting that she's one of the only knights that's kind of kept up with what she's been doing. She's been a great example of what a knight should be. And it's kind of cool to see that brought together in this kind of moment, in that she's like, alright, I got an idea. Send me in. I'll try and talk the Blackfish out. As long as you give us passage to go north to help Sansa, we're cool. And he's like, alright, try it. I'll give you till nightfall. And then she's gonna give Oathkeeper back to him, but he's like, you know what? Keep it. It's yours. That's important because there's only so many Valyrian steel swords. And you're going to need them all in the north. And that was really kind of cool. So, then we get to see the Blackfish. And Brienne's in there, she's like trying to convince him that this is actually a letter from Sansa and everything. And he's like, I don't know her, I don't know her writing, I don't know you, I know your father and all that, but he would even say, this is stupid, this is my home, I'm going to defend it. And you can see that he is pushed into a corner. And he's being stubborn because this is the only options that he's seen that is left to him. But then you see Brienne be just as stubborn and be like, I'm here to get your help to help Sansa. I swore to your niece, read this. And he read it, and he was like, you know what, this is so like her mother. This is so like Catelyn. Well, then he's like kind of explaining that, listen, we don't have enough men to really help her. And she's like, well, it's more men than she has right now. And he's like, this is my home. She's fighting to take her home back. I need to fight for my home. And it kind of depresses Brienne because she's like, well, we have to find a raven and send to Sansa that I failed. And even though you would think this is wheel spinning at the moment, it's interesting character development and also showing the setting up for things later. It's setting up that Sansa needs to find another source of troops for her to help her out, and it's setting up that Cersei is alone in King's Landing and has to take drastic measures, whereas Jaime is usually sometimes either a cooling influence on her or an igniting influence on her. Now she's on her own and she's got to be like, bleh, what am I going to do? So that was the kind of downer and everything, and then we get to see Tommen. And I know people will say he's doing like smart kingly stuff and everything and trying to keep the peace, and I'm just saying he doesn't know what he's doing. Granted, a king should listen to advisors and everything, but you also have to find out when it's in the advisor's best interest or if it's in your best interest. Because after what happened with the Faith Militant and everything, Cersei's looking at, okay, there's going to be this royal announcement and everything. I'm going to stand by my son. And he's like, no, you stand with the ladies and all that. It's this giant disconnect now that Cersei has with her son, and Tommen issues the proclamation that there will be no more trials by combat. And see, that's the thing. Cersei tipped her hand too early with the Faith Militant, and they're like, nobody can beat the Mountain. You shoved a weapon into his chest, and he didn't die. And they're like, oh, it's barbaric, and it proves nothing of the God's judgment. Cersei and Lancel will be judged on this day for the certain thing, like the Mother's Festival or whatnot, and they'll be judged by 7 Septons. And I'm like, you know what? Those people can be just as corrupted as anything. A trial by combat is fair because it introduces true chance, true kind of forces that could be outside of someone's control. Because the Septons can do whatever someone tells them to, or whatever they interpret the law to be. And if people are infatuated with the High Sparrow, they will follow what he would decree, or what he would go with, if they were thinking that way. Tommen is just setting himself up to a part that I think that my theory is that Cersei might have to kill him. And it would kill her and crush her, but he's really not her son anymore. Granted, he never had that much fleshed out to begin with, but he's just a pawn with the High Sparrow now. He's a pawn to pretty much everybody. He's not mean himself. Now, if this is his true self, and he's an idiot, and he doesn't know what he's doing with the 7 Kingdoms, and this is going to end in total disaster, which we all know it will, because King's Landing reached to a point that it's going to be bad. I'm just waiting to see how bad it's going to get. So, then we get to Tyrion and Grey Worm, and Missandei, and that's pretty cool, because we get to see these people in ways that they aren't usually at, because Tyrion's like, okay, you guys drink, tell me jokes, all that kind of stuff. And there was actually some pretty good jokes and everything, and it was kind of a lightening of the mood, to kind of see what was going on. And see, this was kind of the calm lull before the storm, that the Masters have then decided to attack Meereen and use a giant fleet. And this is where I think it's going to come into handy, in that Varys is going to probably find Theon and Yara, and hey, you think you would need probably a couple ships to attack another fleet of ships that's attacking your home base. They come around the back. I think that's eventually where it's probably going to go with Meereen. I don't know if it'll happen in the finale, but I think that's kind of how it's going to tie up. So we left there, and it's like, oh. So we also then went back to now Jaime and Edmure, and kind of like explaining the motives. And we then get more character development in that. Edmure is just feeling defeated. He's like, how do you think of yourself as a decent person with everything you've done? And then he starts explaining about Catelyn and Cersei and how they're similar in that they are fiercely protective of their children. They will do anything for them. And he would admire Catelyn because she could have killed him. But instead she used him to try and help her children. And that's what he's getting back to. He will do anything to get back to Cersei because he loves his sister. He knows people laugh about that, and he knows that people are like, oh, that's, you want to screw your sister and everything. But it's that kind of love and protectiveness that's going to lead him to do things that people will think are completely bad and horrible. But yet sometimes it works out, like killing Aerys. The Mad King, he was going to put people to death with wildfire, burn King's Landing. That dude was insane, and he had to do what other people wouldn't. And it's just interesting to kind of see that and see how Edmure looks at him and how everybody looks at him, and he's doing this for the love of his sister and for those that he wants to protect. So then we see that Edmure is released to Riverrun to pretty much end the siege. Because Jaime had threatened his son, and it's like, okay, we've got a prisoner for a prisoner. Go and surrender the castle to us. And he got Blackfish is like, do not let him in, and they're like, well, we're sworn to obey our liege lord. They let him in. He surrenders the castle to them, and the Blackfish is able to send Brienne and Podrick escaping through the river that runs through the castle, and then goes up and pretty much lets himself get killed. I mean, he fights, but he fights for his home. And Jaime's like, oh, bring the Blackfish to me. And they're like, oh, we found him, but he's dead. And then he looks off and sees Brienne and Pod going away, and he waves to them and doesn't set off an alarm to go and get them, which I think shows that Jaime might have pivotal choices soon to choose between like Brienne and their cause and what's good, and Cersei and her selfish ways and everything, because trust me, she might say she loves Jaime, but in all honesty, it's for her own selfish power and everything. She has power over him, she has power over her children, she's seen that crumble away, and she's doing anything to claw that back, because that's her modus operandi, to get power, but yet it's interesting because she has the inability to effectively use that power. And it's just going to lead to big problems. So, then we get back to Meereen. And everybody's like, what do we do? What do we do? And everybody's like, Tyrion, shut up. It's like, listen, he tried to do his diplomatic approach. Okay? But I know that leads to consequences and everything. And Grey Worm's like, no, we can't do the beachhead because then the pyramid is left open to attack. It would be better if we held this. We can defend this more easily, and they'll come to us. And then they hear something on the roof, and then finally, Khaleesi, Daenerys is back. So we see Drogon flying off. So this is going to be interesting because hopefully she didn't go too far ahead of the Dothraki horde. So that means she's got Dothraki to then take the beach and everything, while the Unsullied kind of keep everything at bay. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Meereen, because it's been kind of weak, in my opinion, but it could be done so much better to further characters and everything if stuff keeps continuing to go right. So, as we continue on, we see and go back to the Hound. He's found the Brotherhood, and interestingly enough, the people that attacked his people were using the name of the Brotherhood. They were part of the Brotherhood, but they went off and were doing asshole things. So the Brotherhood's like, that ain't right. They're about to hang him, and the Hound's like, let me take one. Let me get these guys. Let me make them suffer. And they're like, alright, we'll give you one. He's like, two. Like, alright. You won't let me do anything to him? Fine. Bah. And then he hangs him and everything, takes the boots off one of the guys. He's like, alright. And then he's talking to Beric and Thoros, and it's really good to see these guys again. Because this kind of like shows kind of where everything's kind of going, how they're going to be doing stuff with the Riverlands and everything. And they're talking to the Hound, and it's like, listen, you're a fighter. You've got great skills. You've got these skills for a reason. Come with us. There's things in the north that aren't right. We need to be up there to fight. It'll be interesting to see how they figured out about the White Walkers and everything, or through the rumors and everything, see what's going on, see how they might go north and help with Sansa at some point. I don't know. But it'll be cool to kind of see these kind of things intersect. But hopefully at some point him and the Mountain will intersect. But we don't know. This has kind of been like the death of the Clegane Bowl, because it was going to be like the Mountain on Cersei's side, and maybe somehow the Hound will have gotten down to King's Landing and been the face one. And we'll have to see how that goes later on. I don't mind it, but these characters need to clash at some point. It's got to be done. It's just in their histories to do. So after that and everything, we get to Arya and Lady Crane, and this becomes a really good action sequence in the bookend of Arya's whole Faceless Men saga. So Lady Crane gets murdered by the waif, and Arya's like, oh shit. And then it starts a great chase sequence as the waif's coming to kill her. And It was interesting because you wouldn't think that Arya was kind of like leading her somewhere, but evidently the training has been really helpful to her. She starts doing acrobatics and everything, and eventually leads her back to her place. And then the waif closes the door, which kind of proves to be her undoing because Arya stands up, uses needle, cuts the candle, and it's in darkness. It's like she was better in the darkness. So that leads to the end where Jaqen follows this blood trail in their base and sees that the waif's face has been cut off and put up there. And Arya's like, alright, it's done. Okay? And Jaqen's like, well, looks like a girl's no one. She's like, nope, I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell. I'm going home. And it was interesting because it looked like whatever was going on was kind of settled. Because Jaqen smirked and kind of gave a nod and everything, and I think he's letting her go because she's being true to herself and doing what needs to be done. Because we all knew that Arya is too strong-willed a person to truly be no one. There's certain characters on the show that their personality is who they are, who they can be, that ties to them centrally. And it takes a very strong person to kind of let that all go and become no one. It's an interesting concept and one that Arya, we all knew, wouldn't be able to do. And it was really cool to see that. And I'm really interested to see how she gets back to Westeros, how everything gets tied together. If maybe with her way to get back to Westeros, she kind of gets together with Dany and Tyrion and all of them, the Ironborn. It'll be cool. And it'll be interesting to see what rumors that Qyburn had figured out that he told to Cersei, and that we'll see how that figures in and everything. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.